Boom! Welcome to Weird Faith. We're here, ready to go. Yeah!
Let's go! Raise the roof.
Yeah.
Raise the roof, guys.
We've been drinking some energy drinks here. Tell us a little bit about our snacks today.
So we're getting a little peachy today. I love peach rings, so we thought we'd try something different. We got one of the nastiest brands ever made is Haribo. If you like Haribo, you're a psychopath. But the peaches one is not terrible. The gummy part's not that good.
It's okay.
I give it a
place, 4 out of 10.
The best one known to man apparently is the new Sour Patch Kids ones.
Pretty good.
They're pretty amazing. And yeah, we're drinking a peach Alani, which is a juicy energy drink. So that's pretty cool too.
It's so good. I made sure to position it this way so you guys could see it. Alani, sponsor us. Give us more Alani.
Haribo, don't sponsor us. We don't want your money.
We will trash you.
Yeah. So Haribo gummy bears, I actually, up until like a few weeks ago, that would have been my choice if I was getting gummy bears.
Until we told you otherwise.
Phil got me on the
Changed
Albanese.
his life.
Yeah.
It changed everything. And now the Haribo ones, I'm like, this is trash. They're so hard.
They don't even have that much flavor.
No, the Albanese
Which
ones
one of y'all
are
brought it
so
to the
good.
camping trip last weekend?
I brought a
did,
bunch of them.
You did?
Yeah.
Did you notice that there were still a lot of Haribo left?
The
There's
Haribos?
Yeah.
So,
I
don't know if I brought the Haribos.
I think
a
Eli
bunch
did.
of Albanese.
I almost took them out of
Eli
the
brought
campfire that night just to burn them and get rid of them.
We did.
Yeah.
We did that earlier. I put it on a log and it just like...
I brought
melted.
all
it
Albanese
was
stuff.
gross.
Sour Patch Peach, probably the best. I like
good.
it better than peach rings, too.
good.
Take our word
Super
for
good.
it. Go to the store and get some Sour Patch Kids. Watermelon ones are good, but peach ones are also
Tell them
really
the Weird
good.
Faith guys sent you.
Yeah.
And you'll get 10% off.
They'll know what it means.
It probably won't
You
work.
won't get any money off. Yeah, so we're excited. We got an exciting topic we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about bees. And that's why I got my nice yellow sweatshirt on. Just at Walgreens earlier, getting this candy snack stuff for the podcast. We've got to amp up our energy, and this is how we do it. So
We even put a cool background behind Phil.
dude, I'm
and then I
obsessed.
remembered that Phil can't look at anything that has holes.
you don't like beehives either, right? It's wasp nests.
it's more
Yeah,
wasp
Yeah,
nests,
that's right.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I forgot about that episode. They're both triggered right now.
Yeah,
this
I'm
is-
okay.
this is
I
good.
haven't really noticed it too bad. But yeah, we're going to be talking about bees, and they've got some, really fun, interesting topics to talk about with bees. So we're going to throw it over to them.
All right, you want to kick things off with some
Sure.
jokes? How about
Oh,
some
yeah.
bee jokes? You want to do that?
Please.
All right, so
If I laugh, you get a point.
if you laugh, okay.
I'm going to try really hard not to.
Okay.
If you laugh, I'm going to throw a peach Haribo
So,
at you.
so I thought about making it a contest like we did with the dad jokes,
Yeah.
but I feel like it takes a lot to actually make Phil laugh and
does.
stuff.
it's
He'll hit me
unfair.
with the fake, ha 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 ha, good job, bud, kind of thing. So, all right. So, what do you call a bee that you just can't understand, Scott? A mumblebee. Good.
Not bad.
Okay. What did the mom bee say to her bee kids? You better beehive yourselves.
Yeah.
I got some genuine laughs out of him there.
A little bit.
All right, so one time I had a bee in my hand, and you know what was in my eyes? Beauty, because beauty is in the eye of the bee holder.
You hear that buzzing?
I think it's a bee.
Yeah,
It's a
I
bee.
think it's one of our
We
lights.
actually-
We've got to hit them every time they start getting, see if this works.
All right, he's going to punch it.
Oh, I got the touch like the Fonz.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, I thought it was a beehive.
We don't encourage that
for
kind of
the episode
behavior.
today.
Oh,
Okay. He was really proud of that,
kinda
one.
sting.
He had this like lingering.
That kinda stings.
Yeah. All right. So, what did the husband bee say to his wife for their 30th wedding anniversary?
I don't know.
Nothing. They would have been long dead by then. They have much shorter lifespans than that.
I like it. That's a good one.
There's a
And
point.
lastly, how did the Japanese sauce say hello to the bee? Wasabi.
Yeah, wasabi.
There you go. All right, so we're rolling into some facts now, right?
Yeah, right,
Are you
yeah.
doing it? All right,
wow.
Scott, I'll turn things over to you.
There are more than 4,000 species of native bees in the U.S. alone.
Wow.
And bees are
pretty
part of
impressive.
20,000 different species of pollinators. So that include bees, birds, and butterflies, but also bats, beetles, flies, moths, small mammals, and wasps.
Wow.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Have you guys ever seen the Bee movie?
Yeah.
Seinfeld?
Yeah. He brought it up earlier. I forgot. It's been forever since I saw it. I forgot it was Seinfeld.
Yeah.
that voiced
I like
it.
it. I've always liked it.
Oh, see, I thought that's when we realized how far Seinfeld had sunk.
I don't remember.
It's
I don't
probably
remember
not
that much
like-
about it. I
yeah.
remember thinking it was funny.
If
as a
that was
kid.
your introduction to Jerry Seinfeld, you're probably like, I don't know about this.
This is terrible.
But the kids watched it a lot as, when they were younger. The whole premise is the bees go on strike because people are stealing their honey. And so then the earth just just goes into chaos because they're not pollinating. And I read recently an article, it was something like bats pollinate more than bees, or it was some animal that you wouldn't think that much about.
I want to know which mammal does. That's the one I didn't look up.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like rabbits just like walking past them. I don't know. I think I pollinate a decent amount. Mowing the grass.
Yeah. So how about this one? I thought this was cool. A bumblebee's wings beat about 200 times per second, which is over double what a hummingbird can do. So now I thought we'd see in a second how many times Scott could flap his wings. All right.
On your mark. Get set. Go.
Go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. You got about 6 or 7 in there.
That's
so
pretty good.
Just to help you understand how fast a bee's wings are moving, look at Scott's and multiply it by about 20 or no, wait, hold on, 30. 30 times 6 or
How many
okay.
times was it?
He did like 7. So if it was 30, that'd be 210.
How many is it a minute for a bee, though?
A 200.
Oh, 200.
If you want to know how
Yeah.
fast bees flap their wings, take Josh's probable math scores in school, multiply by 9.
Well, here it's funny that came up because I actually read something. I didn't put this one in my notes because I feel like this is crazy to say. I read something that bees can do simple math, and I don't know how you even come up with that. Like maybe watching them, like somehow they there's patterns.
What
to
if they
how
just use a calculator? That might be, if you could see it just pressing the buttons, that's how you know.
So I don't know, but
There's the whole thing. I don't know if you guys are going to talk about this, but it's not necessarily true. But I think they say that a bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly, like physics wise. Did you see anything about that?
No.
Yeah, it's not true. So
Because they do fly.
yeah,
with God, all things are possible.
amen. Come on, that's it. It's all faith.
So mine are kind of grouped. The next one is just grouped by history of bees. So ancient people believed that bees were created from the carcasses of dead animals.
Oh,
There's that one.
Very strange.
There's also a connection that the Greeks believe that bees were somehow were also when Zeus was born. There's also a connection. I didn't read that one because it got really weird in some of the Greek mythology.
that's what we're all about.
Ancient
here.
Egyptians believed that bees were the tears of the sun god Ra. So
I
I like
there's
that one.
Yeah.
That's
I like
better
that.
than Greek's Zeus's birth. And then the last one, the name Melissa is derived from the Greek word for honeybee.
Ah,
So there you go, Melissa. If you're listening, you're a honeybee.
yeah.
You're right.
Would you rather cry out bees or have alligator skin all over your body?
I think, well, for me, it would be bees 100
Cry
times.
out.
Yeah, like
Bees
the
or get
tears.
stung by bees continuously.
Well, whatever happens after that is on you.
Cry them out. That doesn't sound painful. I think it's natural.
What else you got?
I don't
right.
cry often, so that wouldn't hurt me that much.
Yeah, you'd never see a bee in
Nah,
there.
I'm fine.
Still has no soul.
So in the original Transformers cartoons, Bumblebee's car was actually a yellow and black Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
And then when the new live action movies came out, he kind of introduced the new Camaro to us, which
Right.
had been on like a 5-year hiatus. I think it stopped in 2002. So there's a Bumblebee fact for you.
there you
That's
go.
cool. My next grouping is in the behavior of bees or their behavior, right? So first off, when a bee finds this one's a little long, but it's just fascinating because I can see Josh doing something similar to this. When a bee finds a promising food source, it passes on that information to the others when it returns to the hive through what is called the waggle dance. Waggle dances are made up of 2 phases. First, a rapidly undulating waggle phase and a semicircular return phase that together creates a kind of figure 8. The bees will complete 1 to 100 of these. The direction and number of circuits tells observing bees the location and distance and size of the food source. So what do you do when you have found the best food ever?
I do the waggle dance.
You do the waggle dance. What does it look like for you?
Well, so was that you? We were talking at lunch this Sunday about people who get hangry. A lot of times you see them do this little like dance once they get their food, or they kind of shimmy a little bit. So like I feel like that's kind of what it is. Shout out to my friend Holly Heldreth, who I worked with at Highland. She would always do that. I remember she'd get her food and she'd start like dancing around.
So my kids do that sometimes. Yeah.
So I read about that one too. I saw that, and I saw that based on how good the food source is, if it's just kind of underwhelming, the waggle dance is a little bit like longer and more drawn out and slow.
Oh, that's cool.
And if it's a really, really bussin' food source, then the bees.
It's the difference between these two.
Yeah, this would be a long, slow dance.
We just get rid of
that one would be short, quick burst, really fast waggle dance. So
undulated dances, whatever that means, right? I'll have to put that back in the old vocabulary.
Repertoire of words.
Yeah.
Another one is that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I just interrupted you right away.
No, I was just gonna say. I read this one freaked me out. The average human can be killed by 1,100 bee stings, and it was just one of those stats where I was like, how did you gather that? Like did somebody volunteer to be like, all right. Let's see how many I got in me.
Right.
Because it also seems like a lot. Like I feel like if I got stung by like 100 bees,
right,
I'd probably
I'd have thought it was more less than that.
Yeah.
Well,
so I thought it was an interesting that they have that
similar
number,
because I didn't realize that bees actually have venom
right.
in their stinger, and it says the venom within a bee is actually more deadly than a cobra. It would take more than 3,800 bee stings to kill the average human male. So according to that, basically what's happening is you're getting poisoned to death. More or less.
It still seems like a lot. Like I don't even know if I have enough room on my skin to be stung.
What was it Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull? Was those bees or was that?
Oh, the big one. Oh, that was ants.
Ants.
Yeah, that was like stinging ants.
Okay,
ants don't fly.
Yeah, they're different. Okay. Ants are different than bees. They live in the big pile.
Huh.
Yeah, we got
one more behavior one, then a couple other ones. Honeybees are so obsessed with cleanliness that most will leave the hive when they know it's time to die to avoid contaminating brood in food stocks.
That's sweet.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So you know whenever your buddy leaves, he's going to die.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
I won't even walk out of the room if I have to fart. They leave the hive. Like, I'm going to die.
Excuse me. They're very polite.
Pardon me. Yeah. I'm about to go fall over dead. I saw that bees, they're incredibly smart and they can remember faces. Bees can remember your face. So that bee that you took a swing at last summer, it didn't forget. It didn't forget. It's training. It's preparing for round 2. You better watch yourself. Maybe wear a disguise because that bee knows exactly who you are and he's coming for you.
There you go. So every hive has a queen. When a queen dies or a hive is ready to swarm. Worker bees will raise a number of queens. When they hatch, they fight each other. They fight each other to death. The winner succeeds by stinging all of her rivals to death.
That's how we should do president.
That's exactly what I was thinking. This would be the new presidential race. It's just like they fight to the death, like Hunger Games style.
Mm-hmm. So the winning queen slays the other queens.
Yeah.
So she's
a queen.
Slay queen.
She's the queen bee, like Beyonce.
I almost threw a Beyonce joke.
I thought about it too.
Yeah.
So now, bees produce honey. So the word honeymoon comes from the ancient practice of giving a newlywed couple a month's worth of mead, which is honey wine, to promote fertility.
Okay.
Nice.
One of those things that has stuck around for centuries and nobody knows why.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I saw this one that bees have 2 stomachs, one to digest food and the other to store nectar and water. I was kind of thinking like imagine like it's like a stomach and then a fanny pack or something like that. Like that's kind of our adaptation to what the bee has. Like they have 2 stomachs.
Yeah, it'd be different if it was one for liquid like drinks and then another one for solid food.
Yeah.
Then you'd be like, where would pudding go? Who knows?
It would kill you.
Can't decide.
You just can't digest that.
Another historical one on honey is that ancient Egyptians used honey as a means of paying taxes. So next April, on the 15th, just send a boatload of honey to the IRS and see what happens. We got precedent to go
that would sticky it to them.
Oh,
yeah.
I like it.
And then a single bee will produce only about 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey in its lifetime.
Man,
What have you done?
that's kind of depressing, actually.
Yeah, right.
That's all you did for me.
And that's after they visit honeybees will visit about 2 million flowers to produce a pound of honey.
Wow.
It's more honey than I've ever produced. So,
That's true.
yeah, hats off to the bees. I'm good on facts.
I'm
Yeah.
good too.
Well, so we've been talking about bees, but one thing I'd like to bring up is the bee G's.
Oh my gosh.
Well, you
You can tell by the way I wear my walk. I'm a one-hit faith man. No time to talk. Music loud, weird face on. I've been weird since I was born. It's alright. It's okay. You can wear the other face. We can try to understand with a part affect a man. Whether your brother, whether your mother is staying with. When it's breaking, everybody's shaking and we're staying weird. Ha, 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 ha. Staying weird. Ha, 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 ha. Staying weird.
All right. Had to get some Bee Gees on.
I love it.
Glad you all got that out of your system.
Yeah,
good one.
we're going to turn things over to Phil here in a second to talk about antagonists and provoking people with the tongue. But so as we get into that, we need to hear from AI for our shallow Shakespeare
What would we do with that AI?
segment. I don't know. I'm like really too dependent on AI at this point. I just finally started using it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
but,
You're like writing
it's my best friend now.
birthday cards to Candace. You're like, ugh.
You might need to break
I'm
up
writing
with AI.
birthday cards to AI. I love it. So we introduced this segment last time, Shallow Shakespeare, so we can make fun of other podcasters who say shallow things and react over the top. So AI gave us this time on antagonists. Antagonists, with words like swords, sow discord in accord.
Boom.
Boom.
Yeah.
Quote that on your Twitter X account, Scott.
Think about it.
Do better.
So when I was in school, I was, as these guys could probably have figured out by now, I was kind of an antagonist. I wasn't necessarily a class clown because it was hard to trace things back to me. That was the way I like to operate, where I would try and get other people to do stuff that would get them in trouble. Whether it is, do something obnoxious or say something to somebody. Or one of my favorite things was to be like, jump in the middle of an argument and be like, are you going to let them talk to you that way? Just for my own enjoyment. Wasn't necessarily healthy. Probably not the best. I know people got annoyed with me a decent amount, as these guys probably still do.
Never.
But I've got a little bit of a weird sense of humor, and that was kind of, just my go-to thing was to antagonize people. So in 2019, my three brothers and my dad and I went on a trip up Old Rag Mountain. I'm not sure where the name comes from. It's in Virginia. Had a great time, bonded with each other. Here's a picture of from the top of the mountain. Just a really cool,
Beautiful.
hike. I think it was, maybe like 8 miles up and 8 miles back. But on the second day of the hike, we saw some people that were avoiding this one part of the path. And you could see them just kind of walk way over on the other side. And as we got closer, you could see that there were yellow jackets just swarming all over this side of the trail. And there was a hole there in the ground where the yellow jackets were, build a nest or something like that. And me and my three brothers and my dad all mowed grass when we were younger, and it was kind of a little business that we would do. And we were all very familiar with running a lawnmower over a yellow jacket's nest.
The worst.
Yeah, it's crazy because you go from just like, humming along, and then all of a sudden it's panic.
Running for your life.
With pushing something that's got propellers on it that could chop you in half,
Yeah. I never had one I always had we had, in Georgia, those crazy big fire ant
Yes.
hills. And I remember getting in a couple of those cutting grass.
Have you ever come across fire ants? I know you've been in Florida. They have them there, right? Yeah, they're terrible. So they get closer and they, just kind of investigating, and they're all kind of like huddled around this fire, whatever you call them, yellow jackets nest there in the ground, and kind of checking it out because it was big. Here's a picture if you haven't seen one recently, what it would have looked like. So I'm standing back a little bit, not super interested in the yellow jackets, but I see them standing around this hole. And I pick up a rock and I throw it at the hole.
Oh my gosh.
Because I thought it would be funny to do that. And, I wasn't really thinking like, oh, this is going to end badly.
Theoretically.
The chances of me like hitting that hole in a way that would stir these bees up, I thought was pretty small. I think I got it in the hole, and these bees just start swarming out. And my dad and all three of my brothers are just running away. And I was I saw where it was going pretty quick and got out of there. And they were closer, so the bees went after them. And they all probably got stung at least 2 times, maybe 3. And they're running into this like stream. And I still think it's funny. But they don't think it's that funny. And it was awkward on the way back a little bit because you could tell that they were not super happy with me in that moment. Like I said, I have a weird sense of humor, and it's still funny to me to this day. But have you ever met somebody that likes to do that in relationships, right? Where there's this certain thing. Yeah, I know. I know. There's a certain thing that you shouldn't talk about or not bring up, or that, the thing that nobody should, go there. And I've always got a way of, and it's not even really voluntary. I think it comes from like, I don't know. It's so awkward. It's probably Satan on my shoulders whispering in my ear. But people can be like that. And so I do it to be funny. Other people don't think it's funny, but I do. And then when I tell other people that what happened in that, they think it's funny, but never the people that are in the room.
Not the ones involved.
Right, yeah. They don't think it's that. So I've tried to get better at that. I will see how it goes. But we probably met people that do it more out of a place of bitterness or a place of trying to stir up drama. Have you ever met anybody that like you knew that if they got like if things are going too good, things are going too good, they're just gonna stir up? You guys ever known anybody like that?
Like they just can't stand just for things to just be good, be okay.
Like it's like 25% of my Facebook friends.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I got to make some waves.
It's like, hey,
stir up some chaos.
Today's a great day. No, it's not.
No,
it's the worst.
Yeah, I'm bored. I'm gonna start a fight.
Yeah,
and that is a lot of what social media is. And a lot of times that's why I don't post on social media, because there are times where I naturally am like, all right, you even told me about one a couple of days ago. It wasn't a bad thing to say, but then you opted not to say it because it was just like, I don't have that wavelength to do this. I can't waste my life, fighting people on the internet or trying to even bring clarity, is sometimes the same thing. But people can do that in relationships a lot too, where they're going to throw that rock at the bee's nest and get it all stirred up. And the worst way to do this, I feel like sometimes, is the passive aggressiveness. That happens more in person, I think, than maybe on the internet. But the little comment or to throw a certain word into a conversation because that person's going to pick up on that word, and you can backtrack enough and be like, oh, that's not what I meant, or say something in a certain tone or give a certain look and try and stir things up to let people know that you disapprove or disagree. I don't think my mom watches this podcast, so I can talk about her.
I'm sending this to her.
Moms can be sometimes like that, or even on the TV. You see that comment where it's like, "Oh, you're doing that now. Oh, I see." Just to let you know that you don't approve.
Shocking! That's new for you.
But I don't know if it's true, but sometimes it feels like that the occupation of a pastor can kind of get more of these passive aggressive stones thrown your way than maybe some other types of jobs. I mean, a mailman, maybe they get that type of like, oh, you put this on the porch instead of in the mailbox. Thank you for that. But it seems like so often people will say, then we talked about that, I think, a little bit in here before, like, oh, you're so much better than you used to be, or you're almost there.
You've just come so far in the last 2 months.
Or some people say that they don't like the way that you do this, but I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Just like, well, thanks for telling me.
I one time had, after preaching a sermon here like 4 years ago, someone leave a book in my mailbox. It was like Progress in the Pulpit or something like that. And it actually was like sincere and like, hey, I just want to help you. But it's still like, when you just see that with no note, you don't know who. It's like, oh, thanks, jerks.
Or they tell you like, oh, that's so and so did this, and it was so awesome. The last pastor, 4 pastors ago, or somebody they knew from another place. Like, yeah, I just really love. He just, nobody ever showed me they loved me so much as this person because they did this thing that I also want you to do.
Like literally. This is funny because there was a memory I've had blocked out of my head until you just said this. So when I was a senior in high school, my junior and senior year at Parker High School, we won the state championship in soccer, and several of us had mohawks during the championship, and like I still like a buzzed head, like all the way down. Mm-hmm. I go to church the next day, and this guy walks up to me as the pastor's kid, son. Whatever you're going through, I hope you get out of your system quick, and just walked away. And like my dad was right there, so my dad got up on the pulpit to preach. He's like, "So I want to let you know that they won the state championship yesterday, and all these." And he said, "Let's all give them applause." And that guy was so embarrassed. Dude, I literally blocked that out of my head until you all just started talking about that. I'm like,
well, you probably saw it a lot, but I feel like your dad probably handled it better than maybe some people would because I try and make sure I don't do that with my kids, where I try and like speak over them in a way that's comforting to them if someone were to say that type of thing to them. But it can happen, and it can get in your system. But it's not just us. I'm sure relationships are weird, family dynamics, Thanksgiving, Christmas, those things are coming up not too long.
Hey, you should talk about politics at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that never goes
really
bad.
great.
Just a shout out too, because we do, and maybe it's like you said, maybe it's the same for all kind of jobs and careers. Sometimes it does feel like you catch more of that as a pastor, but I just want to shout out just because like I feel like in the last 2 or 3 weeks I've had the opposite, where I've had so many different people that serve with us, volunteers at our church, just church family who have really spoken like the most kind and encouraging words over me. So like we get that stuff too, but like we put ourselves in positions to like, we're in the people business, right? Like that's what ministry is. So
if you want to see some fun,
you're gonna
if you want to have a fun read, go on my Facebook page.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I shared an article the other day. It was 14 things never to say to a pastor. I've heard 10 of them myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
my favorite one was, "Does your wife play the piano?" No, she doesn't. Leave her alone,
dude. I saw my favorite one on there is, wow, like what do you do the rest of the week outside of the hour on Sunday mornings?
That you work.
You must have a lot of free time outside of that 1 hour of work.
Right. Yeah.
Like I will murder you. Not actually, but I will sick some bees on you.
Issues. Look
Yeah,
at
that's
that.
right.
I don't know why I said
that came out.
3,800
I'll sick
bees.
some bees on you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, I think it gets lost sometimes to people that are encouraging.
What
and
a
I
family we have
don't.
here.
I'm very uncomfortable with compliments.
Me too.
But, and I'm not searching for them, but my default now after being in the ministry for 14 years is in silence. I think you probably hate me. And so even if I don't care so much about the compliment, it is nice to know the opposite isn't true.
Like you at least know this person's on your side,
right,
and cares enough to say something nice to you, whether it makes you uncomfortable or not.
Well, even I think the most encouraging things that people have ever said to me is just, "I got your back," like that. I don't need you to say you're the best that's ever walked the planet, but just I'm in your corner. I'm for you.
I'm on your side.
That stuff means a lot to me.
Yeah, knowing that in another room, if you're brought up, like this person will fight for you. They have your back. Yeah, that means so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, don't say the opposite. You can go too far that and be like, "Hey, all these people are talking about you, but I made sure to like I'm glad you did that, but just leave the other part out of it."
I don't need to know. Yeah.
Rooms full of people that are talking about me all the time, and I'm not that important, and we don't fancy ourselves, to be the subject of everybody's mind, but. We see these times where we have these people.
If we live rent free in your brain, that's your fault.
Right? Yeah.
Just
absolutely.
There's a lot more important things you could be thinking about than Josh Weddle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not that.
But
I
we
think
know
about
those
you.
people. Yeah, we know those people though that have a way. It's just something innate in them that if they're not stirring up problems, they're not happy. The Bible says that in the way of like stirring up strife, where they just gotta get something going. If things are going good, they gotta point out the bad things. And the Bible says that our tongue is really dangerous, and it's probably the most powerful thing that we have. And I love the way the Bible talks about this, but I got some statistics about the tongue. The average person spends 1/5 of his or her life talking. And that's the average person. Imagine how much we spend. I mean, I'm sure we probably do a lot more than that.
I want to think through like on every Sunday when your phone alerts you to your screen time.
Yeah, right.
I want to see if we can like decrease that statistic, go like 1/8.
Yeah, right.
Let's both back up a little bit.
Absolutely.
That feels kind of insane.
It does. Yeah. Because how much is sleeping?
Right, like a
Yeah,
third
right.
of your life,
Right.
on average, you're sleeping.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's wild.
Right.
That's
Yeah, I've always done better. The less I've spoken, I think it's the better the better my life can be. Not that we should never talk. And if you're a person that's scared to death of talking, you probably need to go the opposite direction. But for most of us, I think saying less and thinking about it longer would probably be a better. You got something?
Just because
Yeah.
you had a statistic, you kind of had one. You also spend 1.5 years of your life on the toilet. So just want to throw that out there.
That sounds low too.
It does seem really low.
yeah, it does.
2/3.
90.
I'm pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just want to throw that out there. You know,
Scott, for
think through it.
sure.
So,
Scott's on the other side of the
that's-
average. He's the outlier on the plus side.
So here's a way to visualize 1/5 of your life. If all of our words were put into print, the result would be this: a single day's words would fill a 50-page book. And I'm imagining, a typical like paperback size book. In a year's time, the average person's words would fill 132 books of 200 pages each. 132 books, that's a lot. That's like a bookshelf worth of books.
Like Stephen King.
Right, yeah. Is that how many books he's written?
It's got to be somewhere
Yeah,
like that.
I'm
It's
not.
crazy.
Yeah, have you read a lot of his stuff?
No, my dad was a big Stephen
Okay,
King guy.
Yeah, it always does. We're like, oh, a movie's coming out based on a Stephen King book, and I'm like, man,
I
how
always
many of
prefer
these?
Don King
There's a
myself.
Yes. Oh man, classic. That's like a large one of these bookshelves full of books, and among all those words, we got to ask ourselves how many of those are careless words, words motivated by anger, or said without thinking. Our tongue is a huge amount of who we are and how we are perceived. And I've always challenged my kids, and I should be challenged in this as well, when we constantly have to say, that's not what I mean, or that wasn't, I said this, but I didn't mean that. Well, when we are the ones that are communicating, it's our responsibility to bring clarity. Recently, I heard the quote that clarity is kindness, and sometimes we ought to be more careful and more direct because our words are so powerful. And to be a Christian, it's even more important because we represent not only ourselves, but Christ. We're trying to represent who Jesus is. But James 3:3, the whole chapter of James 3 is just classic, like, challenge to the way that we speak.
Yeah.
But it says if we put bits in the mouth of horses so that they may obey us, and when we do that, we can guide their whole bodies. What it's saying there is our mouth is powerful, and our tongue is even more powerful. We have seen horses with bits in their mouth, and we know how it enables a 200-pound man to control a 2,000-pound horse. And so it goes on, it says, verse 4, it says, look at ships also. Though they are also large and are driven by strong winds, they are guided by a small rudder wherever the will of the pilot directs. So, for instance, the Titanic's rudder weighed 100 tons, and that's heavy. But that rudder controlled a ship that weighed 460 times the amount of that rudder, which is 46,000 tons. That rudder allowed a 200-pound man to control a 46,000-pound or ton boat. Verse 5 goes on, it says, so also, like a bit in a horse's mouth, like a rudder, also the tongue is a small member, yet it boasts of great things. How great a forest is set ablaze by such a small fire. our tongue is so powerful. And that includes, now we have ways to use our tongue that don't even involve our mouth, text messaging or, social media stuff. It has such a, it's a stick of dynamite there in our mouths that can get us in trouble and can hurt people. And we've got our tongue is probably more powerful than it's ever been because of the ability to get our ideas out there into the world. And that's, probably why we see so much division in the world today, is because so many bad voices.
Everybody has a microphone now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to quote a famous thought leader in this world. His name was Jimmy John. He's known for quotes like "free smells," but his most famous quote that hung on the wall of the Parkersburg Jimmy John's Subs store said, "The most dangerous weapon known to man is gossip."
That's good.
So
Yeah, I remember that. I think it was either a series or a standalone message you did. It was like, only you can prevent drama fires.
Right.
Yeah, it was all about. But that's what it's like. Just a little bit of gossip. It's so easy to start a rumor. I think about the Office episode with the gossip, where Kevin is controlled by a smaller version of him. Who
Michael's a
moves
J.
him
Crew
like
model.
a robot.
Right,
Yeah, Michael's a J. Crew model. All those different things. It doesn't take much for words to spread like fire, and every word carries weight and impact, and can be devastating or can be uplifting and encouraging. And
we played a game at when I used to work for Habitat for Humanity. It wasn't speaking, but it proves the point. Remember the old game like Telephone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's the same kind of principle. We knew that half of the staff that we worked with all did stuff like at the Actors Guild, and they were very much into dramas and plays. So they're very musical. I would walk in the morning and already know what song I was going to do. I would walk in the store and just start whistling that song.
Yeah.
Then my coworker would start humming that song, and then we would go leave for the day, drive a truck around, and we come back like 3:00, and we'd see how many people in the store
That's crazy.
were all singing it or humming it. And our boss name was Ben, and Ben was just like very much. He was usually the lead guy in these Actors Guild shows. Would come out and just belting as loud as he could these songs. I'm like, where'd you hear that song? He's like, I don't know. It's been stuck in my head all day.
Yeah.
But just again, it shows even just that power of how it can just kind of just naturally go out. And I think speaking like that is the exact same way.
yeah, we should really see our words. Like we throw our words around so carelessly. I was thinking about the three of us and some other friends that we play Call of Duty with. We actually got to go spend some time out in the woods camping last week. It was so much fun. And one thing I learned about myself is I was really bad with gun safety. Every
Yes.
yes, seriously, and really just with like airsoft guns. So it wouldn't have been like,
We played real life Call of Duty more or less.
but like we had like airsoft guns. We were running around the woods. It was super fun. But we're like, there was probably like 5 to 10 times where Eli or somebody was like, dude, the safety's not on that thing, and you're waving it around in my face trying to look at this thing.
I thought I was going to get shot probably 20 times just in conversation with Josh. He's just like, what is this thing do?
Right. But
Look at this.
What if we saw our words as like we're wielding something that can do a lot of damage, that can make a big impact, that has a lot of power, and if used carelessly can really be detrimental and devastating to the people around us. The same way that we need gun safety, we need to be safe
Tongue
with
safety.
how we use our words.
Put that
Tongue
safety on that tongue.
Yeah.
Unload it. That's the thing too, is sometimes it's not even, we're kind of pointing our tongue at the wrong person sometimes. How often have we gotten frustrated with somebody and, unloaded that on our wives rather than, the person we're actually mad at. And, there's so many times we got to be careful with our tongue. I remember in the youth group, I think maybe we're in Costa Rica, and do you remember with Evan, we were trying to get everybody, we spread the rumor that this certain student hated cell phones.
Chase Drake.
Oh, Chase Drake, yeah.
Chase-
He was a
it
quiet
was
dude
so funny.
anyway. And so we were trying to convince everybody that, like, do not use your cell phone around it because he's extremely offended.
It was like a traumatic thing.
Yeah, right. Like he hated so we would just try and spread funny rumors about people, but it would work a lot of times. It's just
It got us in trouble too.
Hey.
That same trip, we told a kid. That's when me and Phil really started instigating together as a team.
Antagonists. Right?
Yeah, antagonizing everybody. So I remember we told a kid, "Hey, this other kid 2 doors down, like he pooped in your pillowcase."
He didn't even go and check.
No,
And
he didn't even look. And before we could even blink, he was down at this kid's door, pounded on the door. Door flew open, and they're in each other's faces,
Chest
about
to
square
chest,
up,
back
chest
to
to chest. We're like, what just happened? Like this. These few words just sparked this thing in like a matter of no time. This big fire.
Yeah, we threw a rock at the beehive, and especially so the part of that though was they were already tense with each other. Yeah, and sometimes that's how we are.
We knew how to poke the bear.
Yeah, the bees are humming underneath, and you just have to throw that rock at it. It goes on in verse 6 and says, "The tongue is a fire, a world of unrighteousness. The tongue is set among our members, staining the whole body, setting on fire the entire course of life, and set on fire by hell." It just goes all in. The Greek word used here for hell is Gehenna, which Gehenna was a city dump that was constantly burning. So that gives us a visual picture that our tongues, when we're used for sin, are compared to a dumpster fire. And just, it's just vile and gross. And, sometimes Josh's breath can be a little bit like that.
Yeah, I've been compared to a dumpster fire before.
I was thinking, you kind of said this earlier too, with, I've used the phrase, I can control what I say, I cannot control what you hear.
Yeah. Right.
But even then, how you talking about clarity, right. I was in a ministry event one time, and it was for a retreat weekend, but before you go on the retreat weekend, you preview everyone's messages that are going to be shared on the weekend, just to make sure everything's good and ready to go. This one guy was speaking, and it got very controversial, what he was saying. What he was saying was good stuff, but he was bringing in certain illustrations that were not sitting well with people. And once he brought the illustration in, it set off all these red flags where people weren't even hearing anymore.
Yep.
So then afterwards, he leaves the room, and we kind of critique it and talk about it. And everyone's getting mad. And I understood what he was trying to say. So I said, what did he say that was wrong?
Right.
Well, over the next 4 days, I had to make about 20 phone calls because there were several people in that room who went to our church whose kids were in our youth group, and they thought I was teaching their kids false doctrine and false beliefs and things that were going against everything. Right. And so I had to go through and realize, like, what did you hear me say? Well, we heard you say this and this and this. I'm like, I didn't even say those words.
Yeah, right.
But it's crazy, just how usually I'm usually one who has to process slowly before I speak.
Right.
Because if my first thought, that filter, if it gets to that filter, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
The first thing that pops in my head, if it comes out my mouth, it's not going to be good.
As speakers, I'm sure we all go through and look at our messages and say, all right, what is distracting? What is going to open up a rabbit trail in someone's mind that takes them far away? And that can happen, though. We need to be, when we're communicating with people, that's why, you never bring up something, like sometimes we have a way of exaggerating, right? And there's this classic illustration, like on the internet, like how quick does a fight on the internet in the comic sections turn to Hitler, right?
It's a law.
Yeah, right.
I can't think what it's called right now.
And we can get that way where it's just exuberant and we're not being clear with what we're saying and we're exaggerating. And now people are just, people that commit genocide rather than just somebody that
Godwin's law.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah.
The longer the argument goes, the more likely the chance of somebody compares something to Hitler and Nazi Germany.
Yeah. And it's insane how
it's amazing how
it's true.
Everything has been compared. I mean, if we kept arguing about Haribo, eventually it's going to get brought into Hitler's
starts with H.
Coincidence?
I think
not.
I don't think not. And you have a tendency to be very gracious with people when they're speaking, probably because you want that when you're speaking. You want people to think what's best of you. I'm the opposite, where it's like, no, I know what they mean. And I'm mad. I'm mad.
Because it is frustrating when, like, we've probably all said something that, I didn't mean it this way. But some people probably interpreted it this way from the stage. Like if they just hang on to that one thing and it's like, oh, I didn't even hear the rest of this because I was just ready to come up into your face and tell you you're wrong about this thing.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I desire to be understood. Right. Not that I desire to be like, I don't want people to think, oh, he's so smart.
Right. Yeah,
I just want to be understood. Like when I communicate something, I want it to be clear. Mm-hmm. And so I had the same empathy for other people. But honestly, most of the time, I can show you what I think with my looks on my face. Mm-hmm. I literally have to say while people are talking to me sometimes, don't show it. Don't show it. I just kind of like nod and listen and kind of go along with it. But there's times where I'm like, what the crap are they talking about
Yeah,
right now?
right.
And then you just do like what you said. Yeah, right. Okay. Move on.
People have told me that about you, that you are a good listener. I have never been accused of that. I'm doing my best. I've always had a weird thing about like looking at people in the eyes, and it's just, I don't know what it is. It's probably insecurity or something like that. It's not that. It's just like I'm always like I'm in my mind listening, but being a better listener would be a good way to be a better speaker. Because
I think it's
100%.
I think we emphasize the speaking
Right.
too much,
Uh-huh.
and I think even like preaching, it's also we have to emphasize our listening abilities for our congregation.
Right.
Sure.
If we're seeing our congregation as people who've called us to go into God's word to bring messages to them from God's word, we need to know who they are.
Right.
And if we don't know who they are, it's because we're not listening to them
Absolutely.
and their stories and what their
Yeah,
their
so
day-to-day looks
often
like.
that's where my heart, and I believe the Holy Spirit too, like leads a message series or something like this. This is something we're struggling with in our community, in our context. So we need to talk about this.
Yeah, one of the things I'm thinking about, because so all three of us are pastors and we preach on a pretty normal basis. Like the editing process, because we understand how important words are, so we do a lot of editing and revision. It's not just, hey, I'm gonna write down my thoughts and then forget about it and then get up there. A lot of times I'll go from 8 pages of notes, and this is what I want to say, and then can squeeze it down into 5 pages of some much more concise, much more clear. What's muddied up here that I can say more clearly this way? How can I make this paragraph 2 sentences that really resonate with people? But like, why don't we do that when we just prepare a sentence to talk to somebody?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just said it, like we need to spend much more time listening. Like what if we put that same filter on and said, hey, I don't need to say every single word that just pops into my head. Let me like break this down. Let me be clear and concise. That way I can be kind with my words to people.
One just a real quick fun story. I've told these guys before, but I want to let you all in. The sermon writing process, because sometimes we'll throw these things out at each other, run our main points, whether it's each other. Like I threw ideas out at Katie and said, hey, make this more clear. So one time, my former church used to use like bulletin handouts where we had like sermon outlines, and we were doing a sermon series through the lineage of Christ, and I had the opportunity to preach on the message David and Bathsheba, and we used a lot of like fill in the blanks, and I didn't print this out. I almost hit print, but something wasn't sitting right with me, so I showed it to my coworker Brett. So Brett, if you're listening, thank you so much for saving me the embarrassment. It literally said David blank Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I would have printed that off, like what I had in my notes was really good.
Sure, yeah.
But it was terrible.
Right, yeah.
I would have been like, use your imagination. What's the blank?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And then ask for the audience to tell you. I did that once.
Family Feud style.
we used to
Give me
do-
your top 5
Right.
answers.
We used to do bus ministry when I was
yeah.
probably 13, and I spoke there a couple times, and I'd ask those questions like, what is a way we can sin with our body? And
my gosh.
Oh yeah, no, I got
stepped
answers.
into it.
I got a lot of answers.
we catch each other on these things all the time, just saying,
It's like, dude, you can't say
dude, Phil like every other week is like, oh, dude, you can't say that. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it that
And
way.
we know it too, because
But it just came out
half
weird.
the people in the congregation text us, did you just say, oh man, I didn't
Ron
mean
will turn
that.
it into a meme and
Right,
send it to us
yeah.
halfway
Yeah.
through the sermon.
And we get a lot of grace from people for that stuff.
Oh,
too.
absolutely. They
Like,
know-
we
they
were
know
That's
where
just
we're
why
coming
they say, you're so much better than you used to
Yeah,
be.
yeah, exactly.
It all comes back.
I want to mention too, kind of going back to, this is a pretty broad subject talking
Right.
about words and the impact, but you talked at the beginning about how we can antagonize and kind of instigate, especially when we know like an insecurity about somebody. And that's something you're really good at.
Absolutely. I could do it right now.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. No, in the most subtle way, but just to cut my heart out. But no, I love Phil. But I think it's worth mentioning, like when you have such a close relationship with somebody, and you've been in a relationship with somebody who like you've had those moments of vulnerability, like it's the people who you know best who like you're going to be able to know those little things about them. So like wielding that kind of information with people well is super important. Like if somebody really feels confident enough to share their life with you, and maybe some deep dark things that they wouldn't share with anybody else, like take that with a lot of responsibility, that
Right.
it matters that I take care of this information for this person, and I don't use it as a weapon against them, and I'm not using it to cut them down later. I'm just empathizing with the information that they gave me. I think it's scary because relationships kind of go up and down, and I could share something really important about my life, something really, really like vulnerable about myself with Phil. And then if we get in a fight later on, like it might take a lot of restraint to not throw this thing in your face.
See,
or
this
use
is why so-and-so did this to you.
Yeah. So to be able to like really take care of your friends and your loved ones and like trust each other with that information is so important. So like think about those people in your life that you've shared, and maybe they've shared some of those really vulnerable moments. Like really take that seriously. We have a big responsibility there.
I used to tell youth leaders back in the day, it's an honor when someone has the ability to vomit their life on you. Mm-hmm. Like just to share everything about them. And I will say as a pastor, it's very, what?
Huh? No, I didn't say anything.
It's an honor to be thrown up on.
It's an honor to be thrown up on. No, you understand, but it's like, when I say this, because I'm talking about everything, like you're bringing
Guttural.
Like it's that everything,
Deep.
the deep stuff in your life.
Yeah.
Bowels.
The bowels, right out of the bowels. You got me all sidetracked now.
No, it's an honor.
Scott's always let me dump the bowels of my life onto.
Anyway,
This is the kind of like thing that we say people will pick apart if you're not careful.
But as a pastor, sometimes we are very restrained in how we step into those spaces of vulnerability, because I know I can say this, and I'm sure you guys can too. The things that we've said have been weaponized against us.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so we step into a lot of spaces where we're like, I'm not going to share anything. I'm going to sit here quietly and let other people share. And then everybody will look at us and say, why didn't you say anything? I don't trust you.
It's hard.
I don't trust you.
It's hard.
And so
Right.
I would just say this to the people that we know that we have in our lives. Thank you for allowing us the space to do that.
Yep.
We do it with each other all the time, share things and be vulnerable with each other. But I just want to say thank you to that. You guys, you know who you are. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we tend to kind of live in glass houses, and it's easy for us to preach about vulnerability, and like that's an important part of community is being honest with each other, and so we can have accountability. But it can be tough because this can be flipped around, and people are going to hold me to a higher standard on these things.
I've had people where I've been vulnerable in a message before and then bring that up in an argument later on.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're like, well, you said you struggled with this and here it is. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah.
I'm trying to.
people's memory sometimes is pretty impressive.
Yeah, they bank that down, write it somewhere.
I had a phone call the other day. One of my favorite people in the world, Tony, and he listens to the podcast, so this is for you. He has the ability to retain almost anything you ever shared with him.
Yeah.
And he'll bring it out kind of like you do, randomly. And like he called me the other day, left like a little voice message, and he pulled something out from like 4 years ago. I'm like, I hate your ability to just remember everything.
Right, yeah.
And then use it against me 4 years later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so just, before we wrap up here, parents, you especially have a special role in the lives of your children to speak words that are uplifting and that tell people and tell your kids who they need to be, not cut them down and tell them who they aren't.
Yeah.
Tori is a sub, and your wife's a teacher. I know Tori recently has talked a lot about how teachers can speak to kids, and how the good and the best teachers are the ones that walk into a room and say, "This is my favorite class," instead of saying, "Hey, I heard you're the worst class." And that's happening to kids, and teachers are. It's hard for them. I'm not here to cut them down, but when we're dealing with kids, it's so important for us to say the best things. That this is Tori's done middle school before and walked in the room and said, "Hey, middle schoolers are my favorite. My kids are middle schoolers, and I love hanging out with middle schoolers." That's not something you hear. Josh has talked a lot to different people that have talked about wanting to be youth group leaders, and they'll probably say, yeah, I love students, but don't put me with the middle schoolers. And it's just so common for people to just say these cliche things and not to realize how they can cut someone down. Noah's had teachers that would say that this class is the worst, and Noah is a much better kid in school than I ever was. Super rule keeper, tries to do everything exactly right. So when you lump him in with maybe some kids that aren't doing what's right and saying this is the worst class, they're a lot of times they're going to live up to that.
100%.
And so I know that's something you really try and do when you talk to students. And I tried to do it too after I was done making fun of them for all the things they should be insecure about. Later, it would be like, hey, you could step up and you have so much potential.
Hey, you have potential. You are a leader. You have influence over people. You like when kids hear that stuff, they really do. It matters more to them. Like, oh, I can live up to that.
Right.
Instead of just, oh, dude, you're such a jerk. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll just own that too.
So it's kind of weird how life works, where you have this beginning vulnerable side where you're an infant, and then you're a toddler, and then you're preteen, teen, and becoming more independent. This first hump here is all just insecurity. All these, always checking for mom and dad, looking around the room. And then you're finally like, all right, I need some independence. And then on the other side of life, you get older, and near the end, when health starts to fail or minds start to slip a little bit, that dips back down into insecurity again too. So you see on this other side, you also have a really big opportunity to be uplifting and to speak to those people, the elderly, in such a way that they know how you feel about them, because there can be a lot of confusion on that side of it too. So we have an opportunity when we're in that, like, okay, I don't care what anybody thinks mode in our lives, or we're in that like independent mode, that we're being kind to people on both ends of that.
Yeah.
Of that side. And teenagers, we talked about invulnerability. They're experts too in invulnerability, are in finding those places that you're vulnerable and poking on those things.
100%.
So always encourage your children, and especially when they're middle schoolers, to understand how much weight their words have, because they have that way to really cut you down too.
Yeah, they're savages. I was just in a middle school lunchroom like an hour ago, and one of the kids was like, "Hey, you look like Mall Cop," and like a whole lunch table's like, "Ah!" But like, I just like, you just own it. And you're like, dude, like
You're
laugh
right.
with them. Like, if you take yourself too seriously around those kids, like.
You're
done for.
On the other end, though, that comes back a little bit too, because there's some savage older people that can say things that just wreck you too.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't have to filter myself anymore, so I'm just gonna. Yeah. So just weather the storm and try and be kind on both sides of that.
I was one more statistic that I know you want to wrap up. I shared this with Phil a couple weeks back, going back to your conversation about teachers and parents. By the age of 10, children with ADHD are estimated to receive 20,000 more negative comments and criticism than their peers.
That's great.
That's at least 5 more negative comments every day for 10 years than their peers without ADHD receive.
Yeah.
That is.
And so just know that as you speak to people, there's so many layers that you're having to work with and so many complexities. And so just one comment that you're directing at this kid can alter their entire future.
Yeah.
And that's true of anxiety,
all of it,
depression, all those, like, cheer up. Yeah, that would be great if I could cheer up, or don't worry about it. Yeah. Oh, that sounds amazing. I wish I could not worry about it.
Yeah. I just imagine like stacking like little pins on something. Right. Once you hit like 20,000, it's heavy, and it's it's, those little words didn't.
A 10-year-old with 20,000 of those.
Yeah, those little words didn't mean much, and they didn't weigh that much, or it didn't seem like it at first, but over time that can really weigh somebody down.
Well, and that's why it says in Proverbs 18:21 that death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat of its fruit. So the more that we use our tongue, we have the opportunity to encourage someone that's got that weight on them, or the opportunity to add more weight on somebody. And man, let's go out and like lighten some people's loads, and not throw a rock at the bee hive. And I'm gonna try. I'm gonna do my best. But these words have the ability to last. We still see words that have echoed throughout history. 7 years ago, I have a dream. Give me liberty. Give me death.
Yeah.
We have all probably got formational words in our lives. The things that people have said to us that have led to how we've reacted in certain ways. There are times I've gotten in an argument with somebody because they said something similar to something someone else said a long time ago, and it pressed on that button in me, and I blew up because this thing. So we got to be careful with each other. We got to be careful with ourselves and make sure that we give grace to people, like we talked about with Scott, that they're not saying that thing that is going to ruin our lives. Proverbs 21:23 tells us that whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble. And if we can guard our tongues and we can guard our mouths and say less and be clear and to be kind, we can use our words to heal rather than to hurt. And this is one of my favorite. It's attributed to a bunch of different people. I'm not sure who it actually came from before, but it's the acronym THINK. When we are thinking about what we want to say, we can use this acronym. Is it truthful? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it true? It's not enough to think that it's true. We have to know that it's true.
Yeah.
It's not enough that you heard that it's true. You have to know that it's true. Is it helpful? Am I helping somebody or am I hurting somebody? Now, sometimes that means I might be saying something that might embarrass somebody, but I try my best to do it in a way. For instance, I don't know if you've had to do this before, and I hadn't had to do it a bunch before, but you have we talked a lot about middle schoolers, might as well throw it in. Hey, do you have any deodorant? You say that to the side. That might not be, that might hurt in the moment,
Right.
but ultimately you're trying to help
It's
them.
helpful.
And there is a way
kind
to do
thing.
that in a
Yeah.
way that is not kind,
Yeah,
where you call it
right.
out in front of everybody. But sometimes, it is embarrassing. I just saw you go.
Did I?
No. You kind of moved your arm a little bit.
Dude, why'd you bring that one up?
I was trying to be kind in the
be
way that
helpful.
I told
Yeah.
you. It is kind of hot in here. But is it inspiring? Is it going to push someone forward, or is it going to drag them down? Is it going to lighten their load or add on to that burden? Is it necessary? Do you need to say it? Is this absolutely necessary? And that's my problem a lot of times, where I can say that I'm trying to be helpful, but really I'm being critical, or saying too much and it's just not necessary. And then lastly, is it to be kind? I think kindness is the superpower that we need today
100%.
in this world.
100%.
If we could all be a little bit more kind and just lather on a little bit of kindness, I just did what you did, is I vomit out a little bit more kindness, we would see the world in a little bit better way.
Yep. I love it. Yeah, that's your challenge. We want to encourage everybody. Be kind with your words. Be encouraging. Don't just
kind.
Yeah. Don't just vomit out every thought you have. Think about how it's going to affect people.
Be peachy.
Yeah, be a peach.
Yeah, exactly.
Be a peach. I thought it was cool too. I almost forgot to mention this. I thought it'd be cool to add stickers to my laptop that had to do with our podcast topics. I have a shark on here from episode 1. It says "Stay positive," and it's a kid getting eaten by a shark. But I actually have a bee sticker on here that's been on there for months now.
Does it say be
Candace had. No, it's just a bumblebee.
Okay.
But
That's funny.
But hey, be kind. Think about how your words can affect other people, and be somebody who's not adding weight to somebody's shoulders, but somebody who's lifting them up and making the load lighter for them.
Don't be an antagonist like I am tempted to be. I'm going to leave this conversation and I'm going to talk about all the things that I shouldn't talk about and post on all their insecurities. And so pray for me. Pray for them. No. No, but hey, we love being with you guys, and we are so excited to see your comments down there. Make sure you go. You might be like, oh, they don't really care about me saying something. We do. Like, we really, really
we look
do.
for the comments. It is so encouraging. Like, we just love seeing, oh, look, this person. Like, we text each other like immediately, like,
and
look
sharing your little
said.
thoughts. It's so adds so much to it. And also, we give away a T-shirt for the best comments. So see if you can tell us a bee story or tell us whatever applies to
Whoever gives me the most kind compliment.
There you go.
With your words. They said they are awkward about receiving compliments. Just give them all to me.
Give them all to Josh.
Words of affirmation is like my thing. So.
I hate them.
You'll find that I always, and it's kind of a cop out, but I always say, anytime someone says, that's a good sermon, I say, well, praise the Lord. That's amen.
I just awkwardly say thank you and try to move on from the compliment as quick as I can.
Yeah. I start crying.
I didn't write the Bible. And my hope is to, just preach the Bible.
But
so,
you have a gift at preaching, and people want to affirm that gift.
shut up.
You're so good at it. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Check out our social media. I wanted to have it for today, but I didn't get it quick enough. Sadie is obsessed with this Bumblebee song that both these guys know. So I'm going to post that on our Weird Faith Instagram page of her singing that.
So
And,
Scott's going to sing it in her place right now.
I don't know the words.
I brought home a baby bumblebee. Won't my weirdos be so proud of me? I
don't know the words.
baby bumblebee.
Ouch!
It stung me.
When was the last time you were stung by a bee? Real quick.
Dude, I don't know.
Probably in the last
It's
year
been
or
a
so.
long time, actually.
It's been a really
Did a lot
long
of
time
yard
for me,
work,
too.
so.
My kids have gotten stung recently, but yeah, I haven't. I walk around barefoot
It's
in my yard,
honestly,
too.
yeah, it's been a long time since I got stung.
We have a crazy garden in our backyard. So
Tori-
there's bees everywhere.
I'm
Crazy
sweet as
what?
honey.
Bees.
They're nice.
Crazy
yeah,
garden
yeah,
in our
yeah,
backyard. Yeah,
Nice flex.
I didn't plant it.
Must be nice.
Tori is allergic to bees, and she gets stung all the time.
Why are you laughing about it?
Because she's the one that shouldn't get
loser.
stung. So part of it is,
Pressing on insecurity, aren't you?
Stung
well,
like
I
an
have
idiot.
learned just to leave bees alone. And she always freaks out and flails. And
It's
stuff
hard
like
not
that.
to, though.
I just this last week I saw you kind of swatting at them. I just let them land on me and then let them leave, and I don't ever
Yeah.
mess with them. And I haven't gotten stung in a while. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we are just so glad to be able to have this time with you. We hope that this is encouraging your faith. We hope that you're sharing this with people and getting out the positivity out to the world and the challenge to be kind. So our hope is that you grow and that you don't just keep doing the same things, that we're encouraged to be weird because normal isn't working.
Love you guys.